When my grandmother's will was read, my lawyer brother and doctor brother-in-law expected to inherit millions from her business empire. Instead, she left everything to me, the disappointing schoolteacher who lived paycheck to paycheck. What happened next revealed the true greed and ugliness of my own family in ways that shocked even me. My name is David, and I want to tell you how my own family tried to manipulate me out of my inheritance, only to discover that I was 10 steps ahead of them the entire time. It all began 18 months ago, when my grandmother Eleanor passed away. At the age of 89, Grandma Eleanor wasn't just any ordinary grandmother. She was a sharp, successful businesswoman who had built a small empire from nothing. Starting with a single bakery in 1962, she had expanded into a chain of 12 successful restaurants across 3 states, plus significant real estate investments and a portfolio worth over $4 million. I had always been Grandma Eleanor's favorite, though I never fully understood why until much later. While my older brother Marcus and sister Jennifer had always treated visits to Grandma's house like obligatory chores, I genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. Even as a child, I was fascinated by her stories of building her business, and as I grew older, I would ask her detailed questions about her strategies and decisions. "You have the mind of an entrepreneur, David," she would tell me, during our long conversations on her back porch. "You understand that success isn't about luck, it's about planning, patience, and making smart decisions even when they're difficult." Marcus, who was 35 to my 31, had always been the golden child in my parents' eyes. He was a lawyer at a prestigious firm, married to a woman from a wealthy family, and lived in a mansion in the most exclusive part of town. Jennifer, 33, had married a successful doctor and seemed to believe that her beauty and social connections were more valuable than actual work or character. Both of them had always treated me like the family disappointment. I was a high school teacher who coached basketball, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and lived in a modest apartment. They never missed an opportunity to make snide comments about my lack of ambition or my wasted potential. The reading of Grandma. Eleanor's will took place on a gray Tuesday morning in October at the offices of Hartwell and Associates, her longtime legal firm. The entire family was there. My parents, Marcus and his wife Stephanie, Jennifer and her husband Dr. Richard, and me, Mr. Hartwell, a distinguished man in his 70s who had been Grandma's lawyer for over 30 years, cleared his throat and began reading. "To my grandson Marcus, I leave the sum of $50,000 with the hope that it will help him remember that money should serve people, not the other way around." Marcus smiled smugly, clearly expecting much more. "To my granddaughter Jennifer, I leave the sum of $50,000 with the wish that she will use it to discover what truly matters in life." Jennifer looked pleased, but obviously anticipated being named as a major beneficiary. "To my son Robert and daughter-in-law Patricia," Mr. Hartwell continued, reading about my parents, "I leave the sum of $100,000 each with my love and gratitude for giving me 3 wonderful grandchildren." My parents exchanged satisfied glances. $200,000 was more than they had expected. "And to my grandson David," Mr. Hartwell paused, looking directly at me, "I leave the remainder of my estate, including all business interests, real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and personal property, with the exception of a few specific items mentioned in the attached documents." The silence in the room was deafening. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Did you say remainder? What exactly does that mean in dollar terms?" Hartwell consulted his papers. "The current estimated value of the estate remainder is approximately $3.2 million, plus the ongoing revenue from the restaurant chain and rental properties." Jennifer gasped audibly. "There has to be some mistake." "There is no mistake," Mr. Hartwell said firmly. "Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood was of completely sound mind when she created this will 2 years ago. She also left a personal letter for David." With shaking hands, I accepted the sealed envelope. Inside, in Grandma Eleanor's neat handwriting, was a letter that would change my understanding of everything. "My dearest David, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably as shocked as everyone else in that room. Let me explain. Over the years, I watched all my grandchildren carefully. Marcus and Jennifer visited me out of obligation and spent their time talking about their own successes while checking their phones. They saw me as an old woman with money, nothing more. But you, David, you saw me as a person you listened to. My stories asked thoughtful questions and genuinely cared about my experiences. You understood that building something meaningful takes time, patience, and character. More importantly, you chose a profession dedicated to helping others, even when your family mocked you for it. Teaching is one of the most noble professions in the world, and coaching young people requires the same leadership skills that built my business. I am leaving you my life's work because I trust you to continue my legacy and use this wealth to make a positive difference. Your siblings will be angry, but they will also reveal their true characters and how they handle this situation. Be prepared, my dear boy. They will try everything to take what is rightfully yours. Don't let them. All my love, Grandma Eleanor Piss. Check the safety deposit box. The key is taped under the drawer in my kitchen desk. As I finished reading, I looked up to see my family staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to barely contained fury. This is ridiculous, Marcus said, standing up abruptly. David is a school teacher who lives paycheck to paycheck. What does he know about managing a business empire? The will is crystal clear, Mr. Hartwell replied. Mrs. Blackwood's wishes are legally binding and were executed properly. We'll contest this, Jennifer said, her voice shaking with rage. Our grandmother was obviously not in her right mind. This is elder abuse. Jennifer, I said quietly. Grandma Eleanor was sharper at 89 than most people are at 50, you know that? Don't you dare lecture me, she snapped. You manipulated a confused old woman to steal our inheritance. Your inheritance? I stood up, feeling a surge of anger. When was the last time any of you visited her without wanting something? When did you ever call just to see how she was doing? That's not the point, Marcus said coldly. The point is that you're not qualified to handle this responsibility. You'll run everything into the ground within a year. My father, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. David, son, maybe you should consider sharing this inheritance. It would be the right thing to do. I looked at my father, a man I had always respected, and felt something break inside me. The right thing to do? Dad. Grandma Eleanor made her decision based on 15 years of watching all of us. She chose me because she believed I would honor her legacy. Your grandmother was a senile old woman who was clearly manipulated. Stephanie, Marcus's wife, said with venom. Everyone knows you were always trying to butter her up. That was the moment I realized that my family had never really known me at all, and they certainly hadn't known Grandma Eleanor. Over the next few weeks, my family launched what could only be described as a coordinated assault on my inheritance. Marcus hired one of the best estate lawyers in the state to contest the will. Jennifer started spreading rumors about my supposed manipulation of our grandmother. My parents began a passive-aggressive campaign to guilt me into doing the right thing and sharing the money. The legal challenge was particularly nasty. Marcus's lawyer argued that I had exercised undue influence over our grandmother, that she had been suffering from dementia, and that the will was invalid. It demanded complete financial records of all my interactions with Grandma Eleanor, trying to prove I had somehow coerced her, but here's what they didn't know. Grandma Eleanor had anticipated all of this. When I went to her house to clean out her belongings, I found the key to her safety deposit box exactly where her letter said it would be. Inside that box was a treasure trove of evidence that she had carefully collected over the years. There were detailed journals documenting every family visit, recording conversations, and noting who had asked for money, who had shown genuine interest in her life, and who had treated her with respect. She had saved every birthday card, every thank you note, and every casual text message from all her grandchildren. The contrast was damning. My folder was thick with handwritten thank you notes for birthday gifts, copies of emails I had sent sharing funny stories from my classroom, photos from the school basketball games she had attended to support me, and records of the times I had helped her with everything from grocery shopping to doctor's appointments. Marcus's folder contained primarily formal holiday cards and a few emails requesting loans or asking for business advice that could benefit him. Jennifer's folder was even thinner, mostly just obligatory birthday and Christmas communications. But the most damaging evidence was a series of audio recordings. Grandma Eleanor had, unbeknownst to any of us, been recording family gatherings for the past 3 years using a small digital recorder. She told me in another letter that she had started doing this when she began to suspect that people were visiting her with ulterior motives. The recordings were devastating. There was Marcus at Christmas dinner 2 years ago, discussing with Stephanie how they could convince Grandma Eleanor to invest in Marcus's friend's real estate venture. There was Jennifer complaining to her husband about having to waste their Saturday visiting the old lady but acknowledging that they needed to stay in her good graces. Most damaging of all was a recording from my birthday dinner 8 months before Grandma Eleanor passed away. In it, Marcus and Jennifer could be heard in the kitchen, unaware that the recorder was nearby, discussing their expectations for the inheritance. "Obviously, we'll have to put David's share into some kind of trust," Marcus said. "He's too irresponsible to handle real money. If we're smart about it, we can use his inheritance to fund our kids' college educations," Jennifer replied. "Doesn't have children, so he doesn't understand these kinds of expenses. The important thing is making sure he doesn't get control of the business," Marcus continued. "I've already talked to a few lawyers about how we can structure things. They had been planning to manipulate my inheritance before Grandma Eleanor was even dead." When Mr. Hartwell presented these recordings to Marcus's lawyer, along with Grandma Eleanor's detailed journals and medical records proving her mental competency, the legal challenge collapsed immediately. But my family's response to losing the legal battle showed me exactly who they really were. Marcus called me at school one afternoon, his voice cold with rage. "You think you've won, but you haven't. No one in this family will ever speak to you again. You've destroyed our family for money." "I didn't destroy anything, Marcus. I just refused to let you steal what wasn't yours. You're delusional if you think you can run Grandma's businesses. You're a school teacher, for God's sake. You'll be bankrupt within 2 years, and don't expect any of us to bail you out." Jennifer's approach was different, but equally toxic. Started a whisper campaign among our extended family and family friends, painting me as a greedy manipulator who had taken advantage of a lonely old woman. She told anyone who would listen that I had isolated our grandmother from the rest of the family and filled her head with lies about them. The most hurtful betrayal came from my parents. Instead of supporting me, or at least remaining neutral, they sided with Marcus and Jennifer. My mother called me crying one evening. "David, honey, I know you think you're doing the right thing, but this money is tearing our family apart. Can't you find it in your heart to share? Your grandmother would have wanted us all to stay together." "Mom," I said sadly, "if the family falls apart because I honored Grandma Eleanor's wishes, then maybe it wasn't as strong as we thought." "Don't be selfish, David. Think about your nieces and nephews. Think about their futures." "I am thinking about the future. Mom, I'm thinking about building something meaningful with what Grandma Eleanor left me, just like she wanted. But my mother had already made her choice." Within a month, my parents had effectively cut me out of their lives, siding completely with Marcus and Jennifer. The irony was that while my family was busy trying to destroy me, I was working harder than I had ever worked in my life to prove that Grandma Eleanor's faith in me was justified. I took a leave of absence from teaching and threw myself into learning every aspect of the business empire I had inherited. I spent hours with the restaurant managers, learning about operations, supply chains, customer service, and financial management. I studied real estate markets, analyzed the rental properties, and worked with financial advisors to understand the investment portfolio. It turned out that Grandma Eleanor's businesses were well-run but had been coasting for the past few years. With fresh energy and some strategic investments, I was able to increase revenue by 15% in my first year. I opened to new restaurant locations, renovated 3 of the rental properties to command higher rents, and made some smart moves in the stock market that increased the portfolio's value significantly. More importantly, I never forgot the values that Grandma Eleanor had tried to instill in me. I increased wages for all the restaurant workers, implemented profit-sharing programs, and established a scholarship fund for the children of employees who wanted to pursue higher education. I also didn't abandon my love for teaching. I used some of the inheritance to establish the Eleanor Blackwood Education Foundation, which provided grants to public schools in low-income areas and funded after-school programs for at-risk youth. 2 years after inheriting Grandma Eleanor's estate, I had not only maintained its value, but increased it to over $4.5 million. The restaurant chain was more successful than it had ever been. The real estate investments were generating excellent returns, and the foundation was making a real difference in the community. That's when my family started trying to reconcile it. Began with my mother calling to congratulate me on a newspaper article about the foundation's work. "I always knew you had it in you, sweetheart," she said, as if the past 2 years of silence had never happened. Then Jennifer reached out, suggesting we meet for lunch to clear the air. When we met at a cafe downtown, she was all smiles and sisterly affection. "David, I owe you an apology," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I was wrong to question Grandma Eleanor's decision. You've clearly proven that you were the right choice." "Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. I was hoping we could put all this behind us and be a family again. Richard and I are planning to send the kids to private school, and we were wondering if you might consider helping with the tuition." As family, there it was. The real reason for the reconciliation attempt? "I'll think about it," I said noncommittally. Marcus's approach was more sophisticated. He invited me to lunch at his country club and arrived with a detailed business proposal. "I've been thinking about our family situation, and I realize I was wrong to challenge Grandma Eleanor's will. You've done an amazing job with the inheritance." "Thank you, Marcus. I have a proposition that could benefit us both. I've identified some incredible investment opportunities that could double our family's wealth in the next 5 years. If you're interested in partnering with me, we could make Grandma Eleanor's legacy even greater." He slid a folder across the table, containing information about various real estate developments and business ventures. Everything looked professional and well-researched. "These are interesting opportunities," I said, flipping through the documents. "But I'm curious, why come to me now? 2 years ago you said I was too irresponsible to handle money." Marcus had the grace to look embarrassed. I was angry and spoke out of turn. "I can see now that Grandma Eleanor knew what she was doing. This has nothing to do with the fact that I'm now worth more than the rest of the family combined. David, we're brothers. I want us to succeed together." I closed the folder and slid it back to him. "Marcus, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in any partnerships right now." His mask slipped slightly. "You're making a mistake, David. These opportunities won't last forever." "Maybe not. But I'd rather make my own mistakes than trust someone who spent 2 years trying to destroy me." The final attempt came from my parents, who invited me to Sunday dinner like old times. When I arrived at their house, I found Marcus, Jennifer, and their families all there as well. "We thought it was time for a real family reunion," my father said, embracing me warmly. Dinner was pleasant, everyone carefully avoiding any mention of the inheritance or our estrangement. My nieces and nephews, who hadn't seen me in 2 years, were excited to share their accomplishments and hear about my work with the foundation. After dinner, as we sat in the living room, my mother brought up what was clearly the real agenda. "David, honey, we've all been talking. We think it would be wonderful if you considered creating trust funds for your nieces and nephews. Just something to help with their education and future expenses." I looked around the room at my family, all of them watching me with expectant smiles. "That's an interesting idea, Mom. How much were you thinking?" Well, Marcus jumped in. "We were thinking maybe $200,000 each. That would cover college expenses and give them a good start in life." $200,000 each, I repeated. "So $800,000 total for the 4 kids. It would be such a generous gift," Jennifer added. "It would show them how important family is." I nodded thoughtfully. "And what about the parents? Any thoughts on that?" "What do you mean?" my father asked. "Well, if I'm going to invest in the children's futures, shouldn't the parents also be prepared to invest in them? Maybe match my contributions?" "David," Marcus said carefully, "we don't have that kind of liquid capital available. But you want me to give $800,000 to children whose parents can't even contribute to their trust funds?" "It's different for you," Jennifer said defensively. "You don't have the same expenses we do." "You're right, Jennifer. I don't have the same expenses you do. I don't have a 5-bedroom house in the most expensive neighborhood in town. I don't drive luxury cars or take European vacations every year." The atmosphere in the room was becoming tense. "What are you saying, David?" my mother asked. "I'm saying that I've learned something important over the past 2 years. Grandma Eleanor didn't leave me her money because she wanted me to hand it out to family members who treated her poorly. She left it to me because she trusted me to use it wisely. Stood up and looked at each of them. For 2 years, none of you spoke to me. You challenged my inheritance in court, spread lies about me in the community, and treated me like I had done something wrong by accepting what Grandma Eleanor freely gave me. Now that I've proven I can manage the money successfully, you all want to be family again? We made mistakes, my father said quietly. We're trying to make amends. Hey, Dad. Making amends would be apologizing for your behavior and accepting that your relationship with me shouldn't be contingent on my financial support. But that's not what's happening here, is it? No one answered. You're here because you want money. You see me as a resource to be exploited, just like you saw Grandma Eleanor. You don't actually want a relationship with me. You want access to my bank account. That's not true, Jennifer protested, isn't it? Jennifer, when was the last time? You called me just to see how I was doing? Marcus, when have you ever invited me anywhere that didn't involve a business proposition? Mom, Dad, when have you ever asked about my work with the foundation without following up with a request for money? The silence answered my question. I think it's time for me to go, I said, collecting my coat. David, please, my mother said, tears in her eyes. Don't let money destroy our family. I'm not destroying anything, Mom. I'm just refusing to pretend that people who abandoned me for 2 years suddenly love me again because I'm wealthy. I walked toward the door, then turned back. If any of you ever want to have a real relationship with me, one that isn't based on money or what I can do for you, I'm open to that conversation. But I'm done being treated like a bank account with legs. As I drove home that night, I felt sad but also liberated. My family's true colors had been revealed completely, and I was finally free to build my life without their manipulation and false expectations. 3 years later, my businesses are thriving, and the foundation has helped hundreds of children access better education. I've started dating Sarah, a fellow teacher, who knows about my wealth but loves me for who I am, not what I have. We're building something real together, based on shared values and genuine affection. My family still reaches out periodically, usually when they need money for something. Marcus's law practice hit some rough patches, and he's tried several times to pitch me investment opportunities that would conveniently require my financial backing. Jennifer's marriage has been struggling, apparently. Dr. Richard isn't as wealthy as she thought, and she's hinted that she could use help with their mortgage payments. My parents have become more subtle in their approaches, usually calling around holidays with updates about the family's financial struggles and mentions of how blessed I am to be in a position to help. I respond to all of these overtures the same way, with politeness, distance, and absolute refusal to provide financial support. The most satisfying moment came 6 months ago, when I received an invitation to Marcus's eldest daughter's high school graduation. I decided to attend, curious to see how the family would react to my presence at the graduation party. I was treated with careful politeness by most of the family, but I could feel the underlying tension and expectation. As I was preparing to leave, my niece Emma approached me. Uncle David, I just wanted to thank you for the scholarship program you created. My friend Maria got one of the grants, and it's going to help her family so much. That's wonderful, Emma. I'm glad the program is making a difference. I was wondering, she said, looking nervous, if you had any advice for someone who wants to make a positive impact like you have? I smiled, recognizing something in Emma that reminded me of myself at her age, genuine interest in making a difference, rather than just accumulating wealth. Emma, the most important thing I've learned is that real success isn't about how much money you have. It's about using whatever resources you have to make the world a little better than you found it. That's what I thought, she said. I'm planning to study education in college. I want to be a teacher. That's a noble profession. Teachers change lives every day. As I left the party, I realized that Grandma Eleanor's legacy was continuing in ways she never could have imagined. Not through the money she left me, but through the values she instilled and the examples she set. My family wanted her inheritance to be about them, their comfort, their children's futures, their financial security. But Grandma Eleanor had understood that true wealth isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you give back. Today, as I work with the foundation and continue to grow the businesses Grandma Eleanor built, I often think about the choice she made to leave everything to me. It wasn't really about the money at all. It was about finding someone who would honor her values and continue her commitment to making a positive difference. My family lost more than an inheritance when they revealed their true characters. They lost the opportunity to be part of something meaningful, something bigger than their individual desires for wealth and status. As for me, I gained something far more valuable than money. I gained the knowledge that I am capable of living up to the trust that someone placed in me, and the satisfaction of using that trust to make the world a better place. The inheritance they tried so hard to steal from me became the foundation for a life I never could have imagined. And every day, I try to be worthy of the faith that a wise old woman placed in her grandson who chose to be a teacher. That, I think, is the greatest inheritance of all. My fiancée asked for an open relationship 6 months before our wedding. What she didn't expect was for me to pull out my phone and call another woman right in front of her. By the end of that conversation, she realized she had made the biggest mistake of her life. My name is Michael, and I want to tell you how a single suggestion from my fiancée opened my eyes to her true character and changed the course of my life forever. It was an ordinary Thursday evening in March when Lisa told me something that would forever alter our 3-year relationship and 6-month engagement. We were sitting in our shared living room in Denver, me working on my laptop on a project for my marketing firm, her on the couch, nervously fidgeting with her phone. "Michael," she finally said with a voice that sounded unusually hesitant. "Need to talk?" I closed my laptop and turned to face her. Lisa was 28, a beautiful woman with long blonde hair and green eyes who worked as an event manager. Since we'd been together, she had always presented herself as the perfect partner, loving, faithful, with traditional values and a desire for a family. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked, sitting down beside her. She took a deep breath. "And I have been talking a lot, and they've made me realize that maybe I jumped into such a serious relationship too quickly. I mean, I'm only 28, and we've been together for 3 years. An uncomfortable feeling spread through my chest. "What are you getting at?" "I think we should consider an open relationship," she said quickly, like ripping off a Band-Aid. "Nothing serious, just ... more freedom for both of us. My girlfriends say it's normal to explore different experiences before you fully commit." I stared at her, unable to believe what I'd just heard. "You want an open relationship? 6 months before our wedding? It's not how it sounds," she tried to explain. "I love you, Michael. But I want to make sure we both have no doubts when we get married. Plus, my girlfriends want to go out more often, and as the only one in a relationship, I'm always the party pooper. So this is about going out with your single girlfriends to pick up men?" "I wouldn't put it so harshly," she said. Defensively, "It's about having fun and making sure we're making the right decision." I stood up and began pacing around the room. "Lisa, we're engaged. We're planning a wedding. If you have doubts, then we should talk about them. But an open relationship isn't the solution? Why are you so against it?" she asked, and there was a coldness in her voice I'd never heard before. "Ah! Are you afraid I'll find someone better?" That comment hit me like a punch to the face. The woman I thought I was going to marry was questioning our entire relationship and accusing me of insecurity because I wanted to be monogamous. "That's not the point," I said calmly. "The point is that you're obviously not ready for marriage. If you feel the need to date other men, it's only temporary," she insisted. "Maybe 6 months, and then we can get married without any doubts." I looked at her, this woman I loved, and suddenly recognized a stranger. "And what if I say no?" She shrugged. "Then maybe we need to reconsider whether we're really meant for each other." In that moment, the scales fell from my eyes. The gentle, traditional Lisa, who had always gotten upset about other women who cheated on or left their partners, was willing to risk our relationship to have fun with her girlfriends. "Okay," I said finally. "You want an open relationship? You got it?" Lisa smiled with relief. "Really? You understand?" "I understand more than you think," I replied, walking over to my phone. Without hesitation, I called Jessica, a colleague from The marketing department, who had made it pretty clear to me over the past few months that she was interested in more than just professional collaboration. Jessica was 30, intelligent, successful, and attractive, and unlike Lisa, she was honest about her intentions. "Hi, Jessica," I said while Lisa watched me with growing concern. "I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner tomorrow night." "Michael," Jessica said, surprised and pleased. "I'd love to. I was beginning to think you'd never ask." "Well, circumstances have changed," I said, looking directly at Lisa. "How about 8 o'clock at Da Vinci's?" "Perfect. Looking forward to it." When I hung up, Lisa's face had gone pale. "What are you doing? What you suggested," I said calmly. "An open relationship." "I have a date tomorrow night. So soon?" "You said we shouldn't waste time having doubts?" "I'm not wasting time." Lisa suddenly looked uncertain. "I thought you'd need time to get used to the idea. No, you thought I'd sit at home and wait while—" "You went out with your girlfriends?" I corrected her. "You thought I didn't have options?" She opened her mouth to protest, but I held up my hand. "Lisa, let me give you some advice. Carefully about what you really want. Because once we both start dating other people, there's no going back to the way things were." She nodded, though she looked shaken. "I understand. This is what I wanted." Next morning, Lisa left for work without saying much. I could tell she was having second thoughts, but I was past the point of caring. Her suggestion had revealed something about her character that I couldn't unsee. My date with Jessica that evening was incredible. We went to Da Vinci's, one of the best Italian restaurants in town, and talked for hours. Jessica was everything Lisa wasn't: direct, honest about her feelings, and genuinely interested in building something real. She didn't play games or manipulate situations to get what she wanted. "I have to admit," Jessica said over dessert, "I'm surprised you finally asked me out. I was starting to think you were completely devoted to your fiancé." "I thought I was," I replied honestly. "But it turns out she's not as devoted to me as I believed." When I came home that night, Lisa was waiting up for me, sitting on our couch with red eyes that suggested she'd been crying. "How was it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was wonderful," I said truthfully. "Jessica is an amazing woman." Lisa's face crumpled. "Michael, I've been thinking all day. Maybe we moved too fast with this open relationship thing. Maybe we should what? Take it back?" I sat down across from her, maintaining distance. "Lisa, you can't unring that bell. You told me you wanted to explore other options." "I'm doing exactly that. But I realized I made a mistake. Don't actually want to date other people. I want to work on us." "That's interesting," I said calmly, "because you already have a date planned for tomorrow night." Her face went pale. "How do you— Your phone was buzzing all evening. You left it on the counter. Brad from your gym texted you about drinks tomorrow at 8 p.m. The same Brad you've mentioned as being really sweet for the past 2 months." Lisa looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Michael, I can cancel, don't you dare," I interrupted. "You wanted this arrangement. You're going on that date. But I don't want to anymore. Too bad. You don't get to change the rules when you realize I have options too." I stood up. "I'm sleeping in the guest room. From now on, we're roommates. With benefits, nothing more." The next day was a Friday, and Lisa spent the entire day texting me, begging me to reconsider, to talk things through. But I was done talking. I had a second date planned with Jessica for Saturday, and I was looking forward to it. Lisa went on her date with Brad that Friday night. She came home at 11 p.m., looking miserable and defeated. She knocked on the guest room door. "Michael, can we please talk?" "How was your date?" I asked without opening the door. "Terrible. He's shallow and boring and nothing like you. I spent the whole night wishing I was home with you. That's not my problem anymore, Lisa." I heard her crying in the hallway, but I felt nothing. The woman I had fallen in love with had been an illusion. This manipulative, selfish person was who she really was. Saturday's date with Jessica was even better than the first. We went hiking, had lunch at a cafe, and spent the afternoon talking about our future goals. Unlike Lisa, Jessica was excited. About the idea of marriage and children, she was ready to build something meaningful. "I know this might sound crazy," Jessica said as we walked through the park, "but I feel like I've been waiting for someone like you my whole life." "It doesn't sound crazy at all," I replied, taking her hand. I feel the same way. When I got home that evening, Lisa was sitting at our kitchen table with a bottle of wine, clearly having drunk most of it. "So you're replacing me," she slurred. "Just like that? Not replacing you, Lisa. I'm moving on from you. There's a difference. 3 years, Michael. 3 years we've been together, and you're just going to throw that away for some office slut?" The venom in her voice was shocking, but not surprising anymore. This was who she really was when she didn't get her way. "Don't you dare call Jessica names," I said firmly. "She's twice the woman you are." Lisa started crying again, the ugly, desperate kind of crying that comes from realizing you've lost something valuable through your own stupidity. I made a mistake. "Michael, please, can't we fix this? Can't we go back to the way things were?" "No," I said simply. "We can't, because I've seen who you really are now. You're selfish, manipulative, and you don't actually love me. You love the security I provide. You were willing to risk our relationship to play around with other men. And the only reason you want to stop now is because you realized I won't just sit around waiting for you." Over the next few weeks, Lisa became increasingly desperate. She canceled all her dates, threw away her dating apps, and tried everything to win me back. She cooked my favorite meals, left love notes around the apartment, and even suggested we could get married immediately if I would just forgive her, but it was too late. I had seen her true character, and I couldn't unsee it. More importantly, I had found something real with Jessica. 2 months after that fateful Thursday night conversation, I moved out of our shared apartment and in with Jessica. Lisa begged me not to go, even offered to sign a prenup, giving up any. Claimed my assets if I would just marry her. "Please, Michael," she sobbed as I packed my last box. "I love you. I'll do anything to make this right." "If you loved me, you never would have suggested an open relationship in the first place," I replied. "You would have talked to me about your doubts instead of scheming to have your cake and eat it too." Jessica and I got engaged 6 months later, in the same park where we'd had our second date. When I proposed, she cried tears of joy and said yes without hesitation. There was no manipulation, no games, no need to explore other options. Just two people who had found their perfect match. We were married the following spring in a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by friends and family who genuinely celebrated our love. During my vows, I talked about finding someone who chose me first. It's not as a backup plan while she explored other possibilities. 2 years later, Jessica and I have a beautiful baby boy and a house in the suburbs. I'm now a partner at my marketing firm, and Jessica has started her own consulting business. Our life together keeps getting better every day. I heard through mutual friends that Lisa is still single, still looking for the perfect man who will give her both security and excitement without requiring actual commitment from her. She's apparently become bitter about her dating prospects and often talks about the mistake she made in suggesting an open relationship. I don't hate Lisa. I actually feel sorry for her. But I'm also profoundly grateful that she showed me her true colors before we got married. Her suggestion revealed a fundamental character flaw that would have destroyed our marriage, eventually anyway. Sometimes the worst thing someone can do to you is actually the best thing that could happen, just disguised as betrayal, Lisa thought. She was clever, manipulating our relationship to give herself options while keeping me as a safety net. Instead, she freed me to find someone who actually deserved my love and commitment. As for me, I got the better end of that deal. I got Jessica, I got our son, I got the knowledge that I'm with someone who chose me not because she needed security while playing the field, but because she couldn't imagine wanting anyone else. Lisa wanted to have her cake and eat it too, but she ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, I found the woman of my dreams because Lisa's betrayal forced me to see what real love actually looks like. Today, as I watch Jessica read bedtime stories to our son, I feel nothing but gratitude for the path that led me here. Lisa's open relationship suggestion taught her that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. My journey after her betrayal taught me that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what you were really looking for. Lisa is still searching for her perfect match, still trying to find someone who will tolerate her games and manipulation. I found mine in Jessica's honest heart in her daily choice to build a life with me, in her understanding that real love isn't about keeping your options open, it's about choosing someone and meaning it. The woman who wanted an open relationship gave me the greatest gift of all. She showed me exactly who she was before I made the biggest mistake of my life by marrying her. And for that, I'll always be grateful. I came home early from work and found my perfect wife of 8 years in our living room with another man. But instead of confronting her, I decided to play the long game. Over the next month, I discovered she had been having affairs for our entire marriage, while secretly taking birth control and mocking my devotion behind my back. What I did next didn't just end our marriage, it completely destroyed her life. My name is James, and I want to tell you how I discovered that my perfect wife of 8 years had been living a double life, and how I orchestrated the most satisfying revenge imaginable while she had no idea what was coming. It all started on a rainy Thursday evening in September, when I came home early from my job as a software engineer. I had been feeling under the weather and decided to leave the office at 3 p.m. instead of my usual 6 p.m. As I pulled into our driveway in suburban Portland, I noticed an unfamiliar black BMW parked across the street. My wife Rachel's car was in the garage, which was normal since she worked from home as a freelance graphic designer. What wasn't normal was hearing voices and laughter coming from our living room as I quietly entered through the side door that led directly to our kitchen. I froze when I heard Rachel's voice, followed by a man's deep laughter. My first thought was that she might be meeting with a client, but something about the intimate tone of their conversation made my stomach clench with dread. "You're terrible," I heard Rachel say, followed by more laughter. "What if James comes home early?" "Then we'll tell him I'm here about the Johnson marketing project," the man replied smoothly. "Besides, you said he never comes home before 6. My blood turned to ice. I crept closer to the living room, staying hidden behind the kitchen wall, and peered around the corner. What I saw shattered my world, Rachel. My wife of 8 years was sitting on our couch with a man I didn't recognize. She was wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, definitely not work attire, and they were sitting much closer than any professional relationship would warrant. As I watched, the man leaned over and kissed her, and she responded eagerly. I felt like I was going to be sick. This was Rachel, the woman who brought me coffee in bed every morning, who made my lunch and left little love notes in my briefcase, who always seemed so devoted and traditional. We had been trying to have children for 2 years, and she had always insisted that family was the most important thing in her life. I quietly backed away and left the house, driving around for 2 hours trying to process what I had seen. Part of me wanted to burst back in and confront them immediately, but a cooler part of my mind was already working on a different plan. When I finally returned home at my usual time, Rachel greeted me at the door with her typical warm smile and loving kiss. "Hi, honey, how was your day?" she asked, straightening my tie like she always did. "It was fine," I replied, studying her face for any sign of guilt or nervousness. There was none. She was a perfect actress. "I made your favorite chicken parmesan," she said, leading me to the dining room where candles were lit and the table was set beautifully as we ate dinner. Rachel chatted about her day, telling me about various design projects she was working on. She mentioned nothing about any visitors or meetings. She was lying effortlessly, and it was clear this wasn't her first time. "How's the Johnson project coming along?" I asked casually, remembering the man's comment about using that as a cover story. Rachel didn't even blink. "That one's going really well. The client loves the initial concepts. I should have the final designs ready by next week." The ease with which she lied was almost as shocking as the affair itself. That night, as Rachel slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake planning my next moves. I could have confronted her immediately, but I realized I needed more information. How long had this been going on? Who was this man? Were there others? And most importantly, how could I protect myself in what would inevitably be a messy divorce? Dead. Next morning, I called in sick to work and went to see a private investigator named Tony Morrison that a colleague had recommended during his own divorce proceedings. Tony was a former police detective in his 50s, with the kind of weathered face that had seen everything. "I need you to investigate my wife," I told him, explaining what I had witnessed. "How long do you want me to follow her?" Tony asked. long as it takes to get the full picture. I need to know everything. That could get expensive, he warned. Money isn't an object. I need ironclad evidence. Tony nodded. Most affairs aren't isolated incidents. She's cheating now. She's probably been cheating for a while. We'll find out. Over the next 3 weeks, Tony provided me with daily reports. That painted a devastating picture of my wife's secret life. The man I had seen was named Derek Matthews, a 35-year-old marketing executive who was also married with 2 young children. Rachel and Derek had been having an affair for over 18 months. But that wasn't the worst of it. Tony discovered that Derek wasn't Rachel's first affair. Over our 8 years of marriage, she had been involved with at least 4 different men that he could document. There was her yoga instructor 2 years ago, a client from 3 years ago, her college roommate's husband during a weekend trip I couldn't attend, and now Derek. Each affair had followed a similar pattern. Rachel would create elaborate cover stories, often involving fake work projects or fictitious girlfriends she was supposedly spending time with. She had become a master manipulator, carefully managing her schedule to ensure. I never suspected anything. The most damaging evidence came from text messages Tony was able to retrieve. Rachel had been incredibly careless with her digital communications, apparently believing that I was too trusting or too stupid to ever check up on her. The messages with Derek were particularly revealing. James is working late again tonight. Want to come over, Rachel? On my way. Did you tell him about the business trip next weekend? Derek, he bought it completely. Sometimes I think he's the most naive man on earth. Rachel, that's what makes this so easy. He worships you. Derek, I know. It's actually kind of pathetic how much he trusts me. Rachel, reading those messages, felt like being stabbed in the heart repeatedly. The woman I had loved and trusted completely had not only been cheating on me for years, but was actively mocking my devotion to her. But the message that truly broke me was one Rachel had sent to Derek just 2 weeks earlier. James keeps talking about starting a family. I keep pretending I want kids with him, but honestly, the thought makes me sick. Can you imagine being tied to him forever with children? At least this way I can leave whenever I want. Rachel, for 2 years, I had been going to fertility doctors, taking supplements, timing everything perfectly, believing that we were partners in trying to create a family. The entire time, Rachel had been secretly taking birth control and laughing at my efforts. Tony also discovered that Rachel had been skimming money from our joint accounts to fund her affairs. She had spent thousands of dollars on lingerie, dinners, and hotel rooms that she had never used with me. She had even taken a weekend trip to Napa Valley with Derek, telling me she was attending a design conference armed with this devastating evidence. I consulted with Margaret Chen, one of the top divorce attorneys in the city. Margaret was a sharp woman in her 40s with a reputation for being ruthless when her clients had been wronged. This is one of the clearest cases of adultery I've seen, Margaret said, after reviewing Tony's evidence. With documentation of multiple affairs and financial infidelity, we can pursue full restitution of marital assets. What does that mean exactly? I asked. It means that given her conduct, we can argue that she should receive minimal support in the divorce settlement. The documented affairs and financial deception will work heavily in your favor. How long will it take? With evidence this solid, we can probably resolve everything within 6 months. The key is maintaining the element of surprise. Don't let her know you're aware of anything until we're ready to file. For the next month, I continued playing the role of the loving, naive husband while secretly preparing for war. I opened new bank accounts in my name only, moved half of our joint savings into secure accounts, and began documenting all of our assets. I also started recording conversations with Rachel, legally, and with Margaret's guidance, to capture more lies. The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Rachel continued her affairs, continued lying to my face, and continued treating me like a fool who was lucky to have her. Every kiss felt like a betrayal. Every I love you felt like mockery. But I had a plan, and I was patient. The breaking point came when Rachel announced that she needed to go on another business trip, this time to Seattle for a major client presentation. Such short notice, honey, but this client could be huge for my business, she explained, packing her suitcase with new lingerie I had never seen. How long will you be gone? I asked. Just the weekend. I'll be back Sunday evening. Tony had already confirmed that Derek had told his wife he was going to a marketing conference in Seattle the same weekend. They weren't even trying to be creative. With their lies anymore? I'll miss you, I said, giving Rachel a kiss goodbye. I'll miss you too, baby. I'll call you every night. As soon as she left, I put my plan into motion. I had arranged for Tony to follow them to Seattle and document everything. While they were gone, I had locksmiths change all the locks on our house. I moved all of Rachel's belongings into storage, units that I paid for 6 months in advance. I also had divorce papers prepared and ready to serve, but the masterstroke was what I did with Rachel's business. Through my own investigation, I had discovered that several of Rachel's supposed clients over the years had actually been men she was having affairs with. She had been using fake business projects as cover for her infidelity. But she had also been claiming these fake projects as business expenses on our taxes. I compiled all of this information and sent it to the IRS, along with documentation showing that Rachel had been fraudulently claiming personal expenses related to her affairs as business deductions. Tax fraud carries serious penalties, and I wanted to make sure Rachel faced consequences beyond just divorce. On Sunday evening, Rachel returned from her business trip to find that her key no longer worked in our front door. When she called me, confused and angry, I was ready. James, what's going on? Why don't my keys work? Because you don't live here anymore, Rachel. There was a long silence. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Derek Matthews. I'm talking about your 18-month affair with him and all the other affairs before him. I'm talking about the fact that you've been living a double life and treating me like a fool for years. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. James, I don't know what don't. I cut her off. I have pictures, Rachel. I have text messages. I have hotel receipts and credit card statements. I have documentation of every lie you've told me for the past 8 years. Another long silence. Where are my things? She asked, her voice now cold and calculating rather than confused. In storage, the address is 42nd and Morrison, Unit 247. You have 6 months paid in advance. You can't just kick me out of my own house. Actually, I can. The house is in my name only, remember? You insisted on that when we bought it because you wanted to keep your credit separate for your business? That had been Rachel's idea 3 years ago when we bought the house. She had convinced me that keeping the house solely in my name would be better for tax purposes and her freelance business credit. Now I realized she had probably been planning an exit strategy even then. This is insane, James. We can work this out. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain, Rachel. I know everything. I know about Derek, about the yoga instructor, about all of them. I know you've been taking birth control while pretending we were trying to have children. I know you've been stealing money from our accounts to fund your affairs. I could hear her starting to cry, but I felt nothing. The woman I had loved was gone, if she had ever existed at all. I filed for divorce, I continued. You'll be served with papers tomorrow. My attorney will be in touch with yours. James, please, let's talk about this. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. The only mistake I made was trusting you. There's nothing to fix, Rachel. It's over. I hung up and blocked her number. The next few months were brutal, but satisfying. Rachel hired an expensive attorney and tried to fight for half of our assets, claiming that her affairs were separate issues. From the financial aspects of our marriage, Margaret destroyed those arguments systematically. Your Honor, Margaret said during one hearing, the defendant has engaged in a pattern of financial fraud, using marital funds to conduct multiple extramarital affairs over several years. She has stolen from joint accounts, lied about business, expenses, and violated her marital obligations in the most fundamental way possible. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, was clearly disgusted by the evidence of Rachel's behavior. Mrs. Williams, she said. Addressing Rachel directly, I have rarely seen such a clear pattern of marital misconduct. Your actions have not only violated your marriage vows, but appear to constitute financial fraud. In the end, Rachel received almost nothing. We kept the house, the majority of our savings, and my retirement accounts. She was ordered to pay back the money she had stolen from our joint accounts, plus interest. The judge also ordered her to pay my attorney's fees, ruling that her misconduct had necessitated the expensive divorce proceedings. But the real satisfaction came 6 months after the divorce was finalized. The IRS audit I had triggered resulted in Rachel owing over $50,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest for fraudulent business deductions. She was also facing potential criminal charges for tax fraud. Meanwhile, Derek's wife had discovered their affair during the divorce proceedings and divorced him, taking half of his assets and primary custody of their children. His marketing career also suffered when his company learned about his conduct, and he was forced to take a much lower-paying job. The affair that had seemed so exciting and risk-free had cost both Rachel and Derek everything. I heard through mutual friends that Rachel had to move back in with her parents and was struggling to rebuild her design business with her ruined reputation. Several of her former clients had dropped her once word got out about her personal conduct, and she was having trouble finding new business. As for me, the divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I met Sarah, a veterinarian who shared my love of hiking and cooking. Sarah was honest, straightforward, and incapable of the kind of manipulation that Rachel had specialized in. When Sarah said she loved me, I believed her because her actions matched her words consistently. We took our relationship slowly, both of us having been hurt before, but every day with Sarah reinforced that she was everything Rachel had pretended to be: loyal, honest, and genuinely caring. 2 years later, Sarah and I got married in a small ceremony surrounded by people who truly loved and supported us. Unlike my first marriage, which had been built on lies and manipulation, this relationship was founded on mutual respect and genuine partnership. A year after that, Sarah and I welcomed our first child, a beautiful daughter named Emma. Holding my daughter for the first time, I realized that Rachel had actually done me the greatest favor of my life by showing me who she really was. If we had stayed together and had children, I would have been trapped in a loveless marriage with a woman who viewed me with contempt. Instead, I got to experience real love and real partnership with Sarah, and I got to become a father with someone who genuinely wanted to build a family with me. The most satisfying moment came 3 years after the divorce, when I ran into Rachel at a coffee shop downtown. She looked tired and worn down, clearly still struggling with the consequences of her choices. "James," she said nervously when she saw me. "How are you?" "Doing very well, Rachel." "How are things with you?" She forced a smile. Good. I'm rebuilding my business slowly. That's good to hear." I paused, then decided to share my news. "I got remarried last year. We just had a baby." Rachel's face went pale. "Oh, congratulations." "Thank you." Her name is Emma, and she's perfect. I pulled out my phone to show her a picture. Sarah and I are really happy. Rachel looked at the photo of my beautiful wife and daughter, and I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. While she had been struggling with the consequences of her choices, I had found everything she had prevented me from having during our marriage. "She's beautiful," Rachel said quietly. "Yes, she is. And Sarah is an amazing mother. We're very blessed." As I walked away from that encounter, I reflected on how perfectly everything had worked out. Rachel had thought she was so clever, managing multiple affairs while keeping me as a stable foundation. She had believed she could have excitement on the side while maintaining security at home. Instead, her greed and selfishness had cost her everything. She lost a husband who had genuinely loved her, a comfortable lifestyle, financial security, and her reputation. Meanwhile, I had gained clarity about what real love looked like and found a partner who actually deserved my devotion today. Today, as I watch Sarah read bedtime stories to Emma, I sometimes think about the 8 years I wasted with Rachel. But then I realized those years weren't wasted. They were preparation. They taught me to recognize authentic love when I found it, and they showed me exactly what I didn't want in a marriage. Rachel is still single, as far as I know, still looking for whatever it was she thought she was missing in our marriage. Last I heard, was paying hefty alimony and child support while living in a small apartment and trying to rebuild his career. As for me, I found everything I was looking for right here at home with Sarah and Emma, with another baby on the way. Real love doesn't require deception or manipulation. It doesn't need to be hidden or explained away. It's honest, supportive, and grows stronger over time instead of requiring constant novelty to survive. The woman who thought she could play me for a fool ended up playing herself. I couldn't be more grateful for the lesson she taught me. Even if she didn't mean to teach it, sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the best outcome. Rachel's lies freed me to find the truth, and that truth turned out to be more beautiful than any lie she ever told.